Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trey Strolko. Welcome in to Sons of UCF Live. Adam Eaton on assignment joining us this week, one of the stars of the wildly popular Pegasus podcast. He is Christian Simmons. Christian, welcome into Sons Live.
Thank you for having me. I was hopeful when I was invited that it meant we were going to do uniforms for the whole hour, but I guess we'll be touching on a few other topics as well, which I guess is okay and should be fun.
You know, reaction for this began to leak out earlier in the week, and I wanted to show you what some people, the reaction when they heard that you would be part of the show this week. Or they were storming the court after UCF men's basketball upset Texas A&M, but I'd like to think that it was just a reaction to you being a part of the show.
I think it was probably a little bit of both. I can see fans being able to split their excitement between those two equally important things that occurred this week.
We're going to talk a little bit more about men's basketball in just a few moments, but let's talk UCF football. Hey, you talked about it on Pegasus podcast, not once, but twice. You do the post-game show. UCF got a win this week. It had been a while.
They did. It had been 49 days between games, between games that they won, which is a little bit of a long time. 49 days is a long time for me to not sleep out of stress, so that was tough. But they're back in the win column. It's kind of funny how immediately the narratives flip a little bit. It seems like the fan base is just more satisfied, a little more at ease with themselves after a win comes.
Yeah. And the space game and all of the magic. You're a believer in space game magic, right?
I'm a big believer in it, and I know the reasoning might sound dumb, but you have rivalry games and you have big games that are big for both teams, right, on both sides of the ball, and I think part of the space game magic is it's just a big game for UCF. I mean, we were in there in the post-game presser with players talking about the pressure they felt to keep that undefeated space game record. Arizona, that was just another game. They didn't have that same pressure on them, and I genuinely believe that it being a special game for UCF sort of raises, their level of performance even just a little bit.
I know that some in the fan base are frustrated that it took until week 9 for the discovery of Dylan Risk. But, Adam Eaton brought up something, and I can't remember which show, Sons Today, if it was on our Around the Kingdom Overtime. But he said, wasn't it really just the right time for it, right? I mean, nobody was really criticizing the KJ Jefferson selection in the national media, local media, amongst the fan base. Needed to see what he could or could not do. Maybe it was just the right week to see what you could get from Dylan Risk. Do you buy into that argument?
I buy into that. I actually don't know what set of circumstances could have played out this season other than the sort of set of circumstances we got where you could justify Risk ever getting on the field, especially given what we knew before the season. I mean, it actually seriously would have taken all three options ahead of him getting in there and not succeeding for it to happen. And this wasn't some hindsight 2020 thing. I don't think anyone had on their bingo cards this offseason, I think Risk has a chance to get in here and be the guy for UCF,
Yeah, we spoke with Dylan Risk following the game. I'll tell you what, he's confident. You like the joke going around, you can't spell Risk without KZ. There's a little shades of that. He certainly has some energy about him, some moxie. And as we hear from him now, he was biding his time for this moment.
I always believed in God had a plan for me. I would always pray, saying, "I know you have a plan for me, God." Even though I was watching, not getting many reps during the season, I always knew there was a plan for me. So I always stayed ready. Coach Gus, Coach Hinshaw, Coach Harris always told me to be ready. You never know when your time comes. That's a big thing in anything you do in life. You never know when your time comes, and I was prepared when my time came, and we executed and we got the job done.
20 of 25, 294 yards, 3 touchdowns, pretty sharp touchdowns as well, including the Hail Mary right before the end of the first half there. Hard to duplicate that on the road, though, at Arizona State, and I think you can't expect him to.
Yeah, this is where it's going to be interesting how the fan base reacts, because there's definitely that energy on social media in particular of, okay, we found our guy, this is it. Risk will be the quarterback in 2025 too, and how does the fan base react when I think he can and will play well at Arizona State, but how do they react to a normal stat line? How do they react to mistakes, to an interception? Is he still the savior, or are fans saying, all right, let's get Riley Trujillo in there now. Let's just keep working down the quarterback list and see who else we can find.
We have an issue with the clamoring for Riley Trujillo because following the Arizona State game or during the Arizona State game. Do you think the win takes some pressure off of the angst in the fan base about Gus Malzahn? I argued on Around the Kingdom that I don't think much regarding Coach Malzahn has changed following the win over Arizona.
I I don't think so. I think fans are maybe just a little more placated for the time being. But I'll tell you, if UCF goes out and loses to Arizona State, it's going to be right back how it was before the Arizona game. I don't think that bought any goodwill if more losses come. Now, if it starts some sort of win streak and UCF makes it to a bowl, then I don't know, maybe the narrative flips. But it just seems like a large chunk of the fan base is done with the Malzahn era. And another loss this weekend, you have to try to turn the space game into that was the start of momentum and not that was a blip or that was space game magic. And that's what it ends up being. No, I don't think it changed anything for anybody or where the fan base stands on how this era has gone.
Much discussed, of course, this week, the win over Arizona. Now Ted Roof gone as defensive coordinator, Addison Williams back. Also, you had Tim Harris Jr. calling the plays. I thought it was interesting. Two opportunities Gus Malzahn had to really gush about play calling post-game and during his Monday availability. And I asked him, which plays did you like? And I thought that was a softball question. For my reputation of these hard-hitting questions, I thought that was talk about the Hail Mary, talk about Dillon going back in the end zone when you have 1st and 10 at your own 1 yard line. And he goes, I like the ones that worked. Okay. Come on.
I mean, whenever you're asking a coach the question, what did you like that you saw from your team? That's definitely a gotcha question. So I think it's pretty clear that you were trying to get Gus into a corner on that one, but he fought his way out of it with that reply.
At Big 12 Media Days, this is, I believe you talked about it on Pegasus this week, your favorite soundbite. We had opportunity to speak with Arizona State head coach Kenny Dillingham, who knows Gus Malzahn. He was Auburn's offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach during 2019, so he's worked with him. But listen back to this soundbite from Big 12 Media Days in Las Vegas on what Coach Dillingham thinks of Coach Malzahn.
Shifts, motions, unbalanced, tempos, quarterback run game, quarterback run driven, and tricks.
What is it about Gus, and I asked this, what was it about Gus that stands out to you as a coach?
Yeah, he's meticulous, and he believes in what he believes in. And some people say don't ram a square peg into a round hole, but he's going to turn the round hole into a square hole because he's going to be convicted over a philosophy, and he's going to keep banging it until it goes through.
That says so much. Our own Robert Aronoff, 2 letters, 2 words, has a new column. I hope you have had opportunity to read it on sonsofUCF.com. Our UCF coaches, carpenters, or hammers. He's referencing beating the heck into that play. It is certainly, especially now in year 4 of the Gus Malzahn experience at UCF, interesting to reflect on that quote from Coach Dillingham.
Yeah, is it a good sign when a former assistant coach of your head coach is asked about that coach and voices like the number one complaint his own fan base has had with him and how his tenure is gone at UCF? I'm leaning towards no. I'm leaning towards that's not a good thing.
Good times. UCF, Arizona State, Saturday, 5:30 from Tempe, Arizona. Yours truly, in about 12 hours or so, will be on a flight out to Phoenix to cover that one. Along with Matt Murschel, who was asking that question of Coach Dillingham there, and Robert Aronoff, who will be joining us as well as part of our Sons of UCF team coverage. Let's shift back to basketball. Our very own Andrew Cherico gives us a little recap of the night's upset over number 13 Texas A&M Monday in the home opener for the Knights.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Cherico, and welcome to your Sons of UCF Men's Basketball Minute. It's been a few days since the Knights came back down double digits to beat and upset number 13 ranked Texas A&M for their first win of the season. And while it wasn't the prettiest win, it most certainly was a statement win, as the Knights had 11 new players on the court and unknown expectations. Let's hear from Coach Dawkins.
What an opening game to play against a team, that type of experience, that type of talent. I thought it was great for our team. You're bringing in 11 new guys. You don't know what to expect. And they showed me something today. They showed me they could play with some composure. And I thought the moment wasn't too big for them. And they beat a really good basketball team, a well-coached team, who I have a lot of respect for. So really proud of our guys' effort. And now we have to try to build on it.
We'll have another opportunity to see UCF in action on Friday at 7 p.m. at home versus Purdue Fort Wayne. And while it's easier competition for the Knights, there is nothing guaranteed in college basketball. And on that note, thank you for watching your Sons of UCF Men's Basketball Minute.
Thank you very much, Andrew. By the way, stay with us after Ben Hazel joins us. We're going to talk about how you can get any of number of 4 tickets being offered by our friend JP Gilbert, who is unable to make the game on Friday night against Purdue Fort Wayne. So up to 4 tickets available. We'll talk more about that. The aforementioned Ben Hazel, time to bring him in, former strength and conditioning coach for UCF men's basketball. Ben, hello this basketball season. Ben, no audio, Ben. No audio. Can't hear you, Ben.
I'm so excited. I clearly.
There you go. Hello, Ben. We can hear you now. Hello.
I was so hyped up watching Coach Dawkins. I'm like, yeah, I'm back, baby. Let's go. We back. Big wins. But how's it going, fellas?
It's good. It's good. It's good to talk with you. I know we exchanged texts, but good to see you in the triple box here. Nobody thought, right? UCF could upset Texas A&M in the opener. 11 new players on this roster, 9 transfers, still trying to figure themselves out and gel. And boy, Darius Johnson had a great game, and we started to see what this basketball team could be this coming season.
Yeah, I mean, nothing but excitement. I mean, I know a lot of the fans didn't believe, myself included. I actually don't know if I was like, oh, man, we're going to take care of business. But we're all just kind of sitting on the edge of our seat wondering what we were going to get. And the people that did believe played in that game, and that never switched throughout the game. So I was extremely proud of them. I mean, there's nothing more you can ask for while your team's learning. There's nothing better than learning while you win.
Let's talk a little bit more about Darius Johnson. Just a very mature performance for a guy who has spent a number of years, and we're not going to get to say that perhaps much in the future. Years at UCF, you really saw that maturity and his decision-making and his performance on Monday.
Senior leadership, we've been missing it from that position, and we finally got it. We got a guy that looked like he knows exactly what to expect, what he needs to do to help his team win, and not really using any excuses for the outcome and putting it on his shoulders. I was extremely proud of him. His learning, his ability to close out the game and make the right play down the stretch was something that will be something we'll lean on and be why we win a bunch more games this year.
It was a night of surprises. It felt like in a lot of ways. I think that a lot of us were not in the camp that was going to be a game that UCF was maybe going to win, and they start off with this big, I think, 11th ever top 25 win in program history, just this huge moment. What surprised you most that you saw from the team in that game?
It was the resiliency, because, I mean, that's always the question, right? Like when I was on staff, when I look at the difference between your mid-majors and your high majors, it's not even really necessarily that, they do something so different. It's just how people handle resiliency is what makes a successful college basketball team at all levels. So I'll never forget it. We were down. They went up around 9 minutes or went up 9 with about 11 minutes to go. I was texting BJ Taylor and I said, this is where it tends to start to get ugly in the second half. And then that's literally when you saw Jordan Ivy Curry and Darius Johnson really start to ratchet it up on defense. And they really started to make plays. And we just kind of climbed back in it, and they looked like, they were never worried. It looked like something that they've all been there. Of course, the feeling is new. The gym's new. Like, even though it's a home game, it's an away game for pretty much most of our team too. So the fact that, our guys were able to figure it out and win the game, I mean, that's all you can ask for.
I mean, you talk about it being an away game for most of UCF. I mean, it's 4 or 5 starters not here last year. This is a brand new roster, and I think that's part of why it was such an interesting result to me. I mean, what do you think of what that says about this team, that even with all those new faces, they can already get a win like that? And what does that mean for how they're coming together and where they can take this season?
Yeah, when I walked away from it, I was like, are we better than we were last year or more talented than previous years? And I wouldn't necessarily, purely just say yes to that. But the thing that I will say is that the way that they played together reminded me of our Aubrey Dawkins, BJ Taylor years. Right, where you didn't see an ego at any point. I can remember back to a few games over the previous years where you'll see a guy be like, I got it, and just kind of really start doing things that you never really seen them do. Sometimes it'll pay off, but a lot of times it doesn't. And with this team, even with how bad they were shooting it and kind of them figuring it out on the fly, everybody stuck to their guns. And that was something that I was extremely proud of, especially when you talk about a senior-led guard group with Jordan Ivy Curry and Darius Johnson. They didn't even have Jalen. But with a guard-dominated college basketball league, having those guys run your ship and watching how they did it, I'm extremely excited to see what they could do.
You just mentioned without Jalen Sellers, also without Mikey Williams. Mikey in a boot. I asked Coach Dawkins post-game about both players. He seems not as concerned about Mikey Williams, says day to day. Let's talk about him first. When he makes his way into action, what are you expecting from Mikey?
I really just hope that he just really tries to fit the mold of the lead that Darius and Jordan Ivy Curry and Keyshawn Hall are really setting for how we go about it. When you look at the game, I mean, you saw Jordan Ivy Curry start beating his chest on the defensive end, like, yo, the game's going to come down to me locking this dude up, and he was accepting it, right? You could really see the vibe and how they want to go about it this year. I hope he just kind of takes a back seat to that and really just, soaks it all in and contributes in the best way that he can. Because I think those guys will really, I think he will be able to help us, similar to how his friend did, JJ Taylor. I think if he follows the similar suit, he'll be able to eventually, kind of really have a solid role in the mix and be a main contributor. But the luxury with the guys that we got, we don't need to rely on him to be the main guy, which is a great situation to be in if I'm Mikey.
You mentioned it, defense. We hear from Coach Dawkins all the time. You got to play defense, but you've seen it firsthand at UCF men's basketball. It's not just lip service, right? I mean, if these guys don't play the kind of defense he expects, their minutes are not going to be what they hope.
Yeah, the luxury is Coach Dawkins is a guy that likes to let you figure it out on your own, and I think he did that with the Georgia game. Right. So we watched the Georgia exhibition. We look at the box score and we're like, oh, my goodness, man, how far we've come when you look at the results of this past week. But I think that was actually a moment. I wasn't there. I wasn't able to see it. I was able to talk to some guys, but I honestly think Coach Dawkins approached that game with I'm not trying to out scheme it. I want these guys to play and let them do what they think will get them the best chance to win and watch the results. And then they go to film and be like, see, you think this is how you're going to play defense. We're not going to win that way. Do it my way. And I think guys really bought in. I mean, they really understood it and they saw it firsthand. And when you got senior guards leading the way, they pointed out quicker. And I think they really picked up on that. Because, I mean, Texas A&M was coming in with the preseason, player of the year and didn't really look like it against our guys.
You talked also about Jalen Sellers. He, of course, went down in that Florida Gulf Coast exhibition. Scary moments if you were watching in the stands. You just see him go to the ground, and he was in some level of pain. I asked Coach Dawkins about him. He said sore day-to-day, wouldn't get into specifics of injury. John Rothstein reporting back. That's what we have heard, which is tricky. Anybody that has dealt with any back issues knows that can be difficult. You got to give him credit for persevering without Jalen as part of the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you talk about how last minute these changes were, right? Like you got a whole new group, you got guys trying to figure it out, you got lineups changing by the day, and then they still showed a lot of poise, right? Like I just really can't talk enough how proud I was of the amount of poise that they showed in that game. When you look at the team stats on paper, if you look at the box score without the total score, you'd be like, we probably should have lost, right? When you talk about how they out-rebounded us, we didn't necessarily shoot a great number, but again, when you saw it up close, there was no panic in the team and they just continued to chip away and didn't deviate from their game plan, which is all you can ask for at this point in the season.
And when you talk about obviously Jalen Sellers going down, he was supposed to be one of the guys, maybe the guy on this team. In your time as a coach, is there a mental aspect of that teams have to overcome when you have that sort of shock injury to start a season? And what does that say about UCF that didn't, get them off their game in that first, big win?
It can be, right? Like it can be a huge thing when you're talking about a guy that averaged, 16, 17 points for your team. But one of the luxury is none of the guys on the team besides Darius have played or even was on the court during any of those points that he scored. So to them, I'm sure they were looking at it like this is still a good opportunity for me to, kind of really show the fans, the team, the coach, who I am, which I was extremely happy about. But what you love about it is while they continue to figure things out and with everybody being such a veteran group, I honestly believe it's really easy to see where Jalen will be able to help, right? Like it's easy to believe that, we won't go to a 15-2 hole if Jalen plays in the game. Right. When we went down 9 points to start the second half, those are two literal moments that Jalen thrives in. So when he comes in, I think it'll be easy. But I think kind of the unknowns and the new group allowed guys to not be affected as much. But I do think it showed up a little bit throughout the game, but they were just kind of unfazed because most of the guys hadn't even played with them.
And I think one of the most fun things anyone can do after a team has played a single game is then try to project out the entire season. So let's do that a little bit. We've seen one game. You talk about you feel like they can win a lot of games. We know the fan base is ready for UCF to get back to the tournament. What's your overall general feel? I know it's started through just one game, but what can this team accomplish? Can this be the type of team that the UCF fan base is kind of waiting for, you know?
Well, the thing is that the fan base always looks at their team and never takes into account the rest of the conference and the rest of the team. But I'm not going to go here and say like, hey, you know, this is tournament or bust type of season, but I think we have a great chance, right? Like we got a fighting chance. When I look across the league, everybody's trying to figure it out. People are still not really taking into account that transfer portal and the things that it could do. Look at Baylor. I mean, they have a crazy schedule, lost by 40 or 50 to Gonzaga on national TV to open their season when you thought the opposite. So everybody's really just trying to figure it out. It's who can figure it out on the fly and really stay the course is who it's going to be. But I think based upon what I've seen across the conference, we have a fighting chance. Like we definitely do. Teams that'll give us a trouble are big teams. But, you know, by the time conference comes around, I think we'll have some things figured out like most other teams. But we have a chance. I mean, that's what I'm going to leave it with. We have a chance. I'm not going to go any further out on the limb than that.
We'll put you under more stress with that prediction later on in the season. You mentioned big guy Mustafa Thiam. He, by the way, should be in high school. Yeah. He reclassified 6 blocks, but he altered a lot of shots too. This kid could be special for the Knights.
Yes, he is. And in order for us to get to that tournament, he's going to have to be, right? So that's the one area where, you know, been our little bit of our Achilles heel where we have some weakness. But I think he'll continue to grow. And what you love is he had foul trouble, wasn't super productive on the offensive end, but still had 6 blocks and was fighting all the way through. Like he was taking those one-on-one challenges. I know he was put in situations he's probably never been in where a team's ISOing him from the elbow, you know, 3, 4, 5 possessions in a row. But he responded to the challenge. Like he didn't back down. He didn't get down on himself. So I was extremely encouraged. He's the guy or he's the piece that I think will put us over the top by the time conference and when we get later into the season.
Texas A&M went right at him, though. He collected a couple of quick fouls, and credit to the Knights and Coach Dawkins and staff. They put him back in late, right? And he had to experience that moment there of racking up those fouls. That was a real growth moment for him, you hope, right? To keeping composure. But it was interesting how they went at him. But if he fouls out or something, you know, what do they do? What do you expect to happen there if he's not in?
Well, this is where we need Keyshawn Hall to stay out of foul trouble as well. He's the versatile piece that can kind of allow us to not necessarily change too much when you talk about from a lineup that can maybe slide to the 5, stay in the game with Benji. Those are the kind of options that you're looking at, but we are pretty thin up front. We're going to need him to stay out of foul trouble. We need all those bigs, Keyshawn especially, to stay out of foul trouble. But these are all growing pains. Like I said, like that was his first college game, shouldn't even be in college. You know, Keyshawn's first home game, you know, everybody's figuring it out on the fly. But I really liked, you know, the fight that they have. And those things I think will be easy to clean up.
Now they have to avoid a letdown with Purdue Fort Wayne at home on Friday.
Yeah, that's the number one thing. I mean, I think Andrew kind of hinted at the mental challenge that Coach Dawkins is constantly fighting. We're facing a lesser opponent. We're facing a lesser opponent according to who, right? So every team in college has a chance to beat you. We are nobody. We haven't won anything. I know that's the message to Coach Dawkins, like great win.
But yeah, don't let's not clip that. We are nobody.
I'm not, and I don't mean that in the sense of a degrading thing. We are earning that. We are earning that as we speak. So we have to prove everything on the court. So yes, they are lesser, but they need to look lesser when we play them. So coming out with that fire, coming out with that intensity. And really, when our number one challenge to our team is our physicality, I mean, we got killed on the glass. We got killed on the glass against Georgia in the exhibition. We got killed in our first game on the glass. So I think that's going to be the top of the list for challenges for this team. So I think that will be the thing that if they hone in on that and taking care of that, they will continue to progress along.
Ben, it's been good to have you back. Just a quick question, though. Is bow ties during conference play, or is a bow tie thing a whole season thing?
Oh, it's definitely during conference when it matters.
Okay.
I'm in the Coach Dawkins boat. I'm a Coach Dawkins guy. I'm from the Coach Dawkins tree. We celebrate when it matters. So we got to get there first.
Well, it matters to us that you were with us this week on Sons of UCF Live, and we celebrate you all the time. Ben, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Go Knights. All
right, charge on. All right, I mentioned it off the top. I got to say goodbye to Ben. I forget about that. That's usually an Adam function. Bye, Ben. I forgot about that part. See, this is the part, Christian, pre-show meeting where I said, if you just don't mention these things, nobody notices. But when you talk about it audibly, then everybody knows that we didn't say I mentioned it earlier. JP Gilbert, our friend, has offered up 4 tickets. So direct message me on the Twitter at @SignPez if you want to claim those, and I will connect you with JP and make sure you get those tickets. So up to 4 tickets are available for that. So are you encouraged? UCF, they're a basketball school now, right?
They are. It's exciting. I think it's really cool how UCF is just a full-on basketball school. Don't even see a point in talking about the football program at this point. I think it's just all in on basketball. I've been, as I think most people who follow me on Twitter or listen to my show know, I've been a Dawkins believer even when there was not always a lot of cause to believe. So I'm ready to go obnoxiously all in on one top 25 win for this team and believing that a strong season could be on the way.
I think you said on your show, right? 11 top 25 wins, and several of those are under Johnny Dawkins.
Yeah, 4 just since last year. Seems good. Seems pretty good.
Since last year. The Boo Birds, they're focused over at the football stadium. They're a little calmer. Let's shift back to football. Our friend Andy at UCF XOS, he breaks down plays. He posts them on his Twitter. He contributes to our show. Let's see what he broke down this week.
All right, so this is going to be the play of the game. I thought that this set the tone early and often against Arizona. RJ ended up having 7 explosive runs of 15 yards or more. What we're going to see is we came out in a double tight end, 12 personnel. The box is stacked right here, right? We have 8 guys here plus the safety. Now, what we're going to see is inside zone. Typically, when you see these big plays hit on zone, they're normally hitting the cutback. And here we're actually going to see everybody gets a hat on a hat. So up front, we have 7 blocking. Everybody gets a hat on a hat. And then RJ is able to keep pressing the front. So he's able to keep pressing it. The safety now is watching the quarterback. And he ends up pulling out of the play. Ends up being a great touchdown. On the left side, this is a great job by Randy, by Amari, by Adrian. They're going to wash down the defenders, let them go where they want to, and just keep pushing across. This is letting RJ then continue to press the front side and not have to do the cutback. And then as you see the safety, he's watching Dylan on the backside action. So he ends up getting pulled out of the way, and this ends up being a huge touchdown. Again, we had 7 runs of over 15 yards in the game, multiple touchdowns by RJ, and that ended up being the UCF X's and O's play of the game.
Just a minute and 20 seconds, but I could just watch RJ Harvey score and score on a loop. So enjoyable to watch. He's one of the greats, right? He's on that Mount Rushmore of running backs.
I honestly don't. This is an interesting one because obviously Kevin Smith is number 1, right? But there's no one.
There's argument about that.
So that's
a lesser competition.
That part I don't agree with. That's just fans who haven't been around. Sorry, guys. But I think that it is interesting that less the competition and more Kevin Smith was in a very different era of college football where running backs were used very differently. He was used very heavily. Do you think RJ Harvey could have put up Kevin Smith numbers or better if he had been in that offense or if he had been given that amount of production and that level of carries?
It's an interesting debate, but let's save that topic for the offseason. It's going to be a long time to fill multiple shows. Hey, are you part of the Big 12 Pick'em that we do?
I am not, but I hear you're a huge fan of it.
I am a huge fan because I continue to be ahead of the artist formerly known as UCF Mike. I have stretched out a lead of 8 games with just a couple of weeks left, so I'm feeling pretty confident. I don't want to get cocky, though. We're getting down the stretch here now. Big 12 still wide open. Let's check in with Jeff Allen in our Big 12 Minute.
Week 11 starts the shaping of the race to the Big 12 title game. BYU has sole possession of first place and a number 9 ranking in the first college football playoff poll going into this week's game at Utah. That will be Big 12 After Dark on Saturday night at 10:15 on ESPN. Iowa State sits a game back as they take on Kansas at 3:30 on FS1. Colorado, also a game back, travels to Texas Tech, 4 o'clock on Fox. Other conference matchups have West Virginia taking on Cincinnati at noon on FS1. Oklahoma State battles TCU at 7 o'clock on FS1. And our UCF Knights venture west to take on Arizona State. How will they fare in their second game with the new coordinator setup and Dylan Risk making his second start at quarterback? Find out at 7 o'clock on ESPN2. And in women's soccer, the championship game is taking place on Saturday. The top seed TCU battles the 6th seed Kansas. Again, that's Saturday at 7 p.m. on ESPN+. With your Big 12 Minute, I'm Jeff Allen.
Thank you, Jeff. As he mentioned, UCF, Arizona State, Saturday, 7 o'clock, ESPN2. Let's get to know more about the Sun Devils. Let's welcome in Ralph Amsden. He's part of the Forecast podcast on the 1012 Network. I like the name for that, Ralph. Welcome into Sons of UCF Live.
Hey, it's nice to be with you.
All right. I believe that Arizona State was picked near the bottom, maybe last.
The bottom.
Right? And there's a lot of teams in this league, not just 12, 16, right?
Mm-hmm.
What has worked well for them this year?
Well, I mean, that was kind of a fun little thing to have happen because, and you know, I got to question the Big 12 media as a whole at some point, because I think the 5 teams that got first place votes outside of Kansas State are all on the struggle bus pretty bad. I think the 2 teams that got the most first place votes might be 1 and 9 combined in conference. And so, you know, I think
so nobody knows nothing is what you said.
Yeah, that's really what it felt like. And I think if you had paid attention, you knew that Arizona State went 3-9 last year, but they were 12 points away from being 6-6. They were up on Oklahoma State at halftime, and they did all that with about 5 healthy offensive linemen. They had a running back and tight end playing quarterback at some points. And so, you know, you knew with some of the transfers in, with the access to California, with the NCAA investigation penalties kind of reaching their endpoint, that there was actually probably a pretty good shot to be mediocre at the very least. And using being picked last as a motivating factor, I think was really, really helpful for the coaching staff.
They haven't played at home in a while. They returned, though, with some questions, some injury questions. What can you tell us?
Well, the team is at times feels like it's 85% Cam Scattaboo, and you know, I know you guys know this with RJ Harvey and kind of as RJ Harvey goes, you go sometimes. Well, it's not sometimes for us. It's pretty much all the time. If something good's going to happen for Arizona State, it's going to involve Cam Scattaboo getting between 25 and 30 touches. He broke 10 tackles last week, had over 100 yards rushing, over 100 yards receiving, and at some point possibly banged up his collarbone a little bit. And now they're talking about a game time decision or maybe trending more toward doubtful. Well, I've never heard of a collarbone injury that wasn't a lingering thing. And so, you know, my guess, if I had to, is that you're not going to see him this week. And you know, that imagining Arizona State without Cam Scattaboo right now is pretty hard, I think, for a lot of ASU fans, because he's been such a large part of that offense. They got a young quarterback in Sam Levitt, who is a redshirt freshman who likes to take off running, doesn't always like to protect himself. He's nursing busted ribs and coming back from that right now, so he's banged up as well. And then Keyshawn Elliott, who's probably their best linebacker, he's going to miss the game. However, the best substitute they have on the team is Caleb McCullough. And in the times when Keyshawn Elliott hasn't been able to play, whether through targeting suspension or anything else, Caleb McCullough has come up big. So I think the defense is one that Arizona State fans are a lot less worried about than on the offensive side of the football, where the quarterback is nursing sore ribs and where the guy who you run the entire offense through isn't healthy.
Did it surprise you that Coach Dillingham was as forthcoming as he was about Cam?
Yes, and he's been that way.
We're used to the Gus Malzahn experience, where you get the most you get is he's a guy. You know, that's you got no idea where anybody is.
And Kenny Dillingham is a Gus Malzahn disciple through the whole tree, the whole Gus Malzahn Todd Graham marriage that produced Mike Norvell and Ryan Silverfield and Kenny Dillingham and to some extent Dan Lanning, even though he's a defensive guy. You know, a lot of these guys all came out of the same thing, and I know Kenny Dillingham worked for him at Auburn. But yeah, I'm genuinely shocked, because I'm on the West Coast. I'm used to Kyle Whittingham, who just lies. he lies to the point where his own players have to, you know, having Cam Rising warm up for games when he had 3 torn knee ligaments last year. You know, I know that Kenny Dillingham wants to be Kyle Whittingham. That's kind of his coaching hero. So it is always a big surprise to me. And maybe it's just part of being born in 1990 and not knowing the difference. But he's very, very forthcoming with the media. When Sam Levitt's rib thing happened, he said, hey, he's going to miss a game. And when they could have said, you know, you need to prepare for him or Jeff Sims leading into last week, he said, no, I think he'll play. So, you know, he's always been very, very forthcoming with that stuff. It'll be interesting to see if it evolves as time goes on. But to him, I don't think he sees a need to cover anything up. I think he thinks that that's maybe antiquated and doesn't involve as much of an advantage as older coaches believe it does.
I think one of the impacts of covering Gus Malzahn for the last few years is, and I've said this on our show, is that, you know, earlier in the week, I see those comments from Kenny Dillingham and I go, so this is a ruse. This is some sort of trick to get UCF off balance and have them thinking he's not going to be out there, and then he runs out. So that's where our headspace is at with what we get. But
you've been gaslit into skepticism of honest people.
Guslit.
Yes.
Oh no. Oh, that just became a thing. We're going to be using that a lot.
That's a thing.
But let's say that Cam Scatterbo, Kenny Dillingham is accurate and this collarbone issue or whatever it is, he can't play. Who are some of the skill guys on offense that UCF will be on the lookout for, guys who are going to step up and help fill that role?
Well, you know, the primary backup up until a couple of weeks ago was a 23-year-old running back named DeCarlos Brooks. He's kind of stylistically different than Cam Scatterbo. Cam Scatterbo is a brick on wheels. DeCarlos Brooks is more of like a one cut back, you know, would thrive in a zone blocking system, one of those old, you know, Mike Shanahan style, Alex Gibbs zone blocking systems, you know, and that's not really what Arizona State does. And so he hasn't played all that much. And then they've got kind of a young, powerful running back who kind of reminds me of Kalen Ballage. If you remember him, he was a brief cup of coffee in the NFL, played at Arizona State for a few years, but he's a big athletic running back and has made some big plays this year. So it'll probably be split carries between Kyson Brown and DeCarlos Brooks. I don't think this year, and I'd have to check last week's game, but I don't think they have a single game this year where the wide receiver receptions are in the double digits. And I'm talking about all wide receivers on the team combined. So you know, they're only completing 12 to 15 passes a game. And a lot of those are to, you know, tight ends or running backs. If there is one receiver you have to worry about, it's Jordan Tyson, who was one of the Deion Sanders castoffs out of University of Colorado. Even though he was very good at Colorado before Deion got there, he missed all of last season with an injury. This season, he is far and away the receiver that Sam Levitt likes to depend upon the most. Pretty typical for him to get 6 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. But again, they don't throw much. And that's not by design. It's kind of by necessity. But there are receivers that they're really, really hoping at some point can break out, like a Jake Smith or a Melquan Stovall. But the fact of the matter is they haven't been able to get the passing game going in the way that they want to. That's not necessarily an offensive line issue. It's more of just a youth and dependability and accuracy. Sam Levitt's not the most accurate guy in the entire world, but he's tough as nails. He'll take off and lower a shoulder and he loves to just keep the chains moving by any means necessary.
And a little bit away from just the game itself, but I'm always curious to ask, what are Arizona State fans' impression of UCF? These are two teams suddenly in the same conference, obviously very different regions of the country. What is this game like for Arizona fans? What is this like being in a conference with a team from Florida?
Yeah, so I will say that I don't know if they know what to think. But I've had an agenda from the moment that I knew that we were headed to the Big 12, that first of all, I wanted to AstroTurf a rivalry with UCF. I was all in on that. And one of the reasons for that is, to me, UCF is proof of the thing that Arizona State fans swear can't happen, which is there's too much to do in the Phoenix metropolitan area. There's too many distractions. The weather's too nice, you know, part of the year. And that you can't go all out for Arizona State, even though it's one of the top 5 public institutions as far as student body population every single year that you can't wake up the sleeping giant. And everybody always talks about Arizona State football as the sleeping giant. The truth is the fan base is the sleeping giant, because every year they graduate 15,000 people, yet they have trouble selling out a 50,000 seat stadium. So my whole thing is like, guys, it's been done. It's been done in Orlando, where there is no city on earth where there are, more options for you to do either there or within a 50-mile radius in any given direction. And the fan base for a 5-6 year run was absolutely on fire, both online and in person, and investment in the program led to the leveling up into the Big 12. And so, I don't know, the message hasn't been really well received, but I've been hammering it home constantly, because they don't feel like, why would we want to look up to a team or look to a team that is going into a power conference for the very first time? And I'm like, well, it's very, very simple. They have a lot of students in a nice area where there's a million things to do, and they had success, and it ignited the entire fan base. And I believe that can be the same for Arizona State. So at the same time where I've been trying to figure out going into a new conference, who to even get excited to play is a really, really tough thing. But the one thing that I've told everybody to look out for is in these Big 12 towns, which Bill Walton used to call truck stops, in these, Tempe is not one of them. Orlando is not one of them, but there is such good culture around the schools, and the schools mean so much to the communities, that maybe Arizona State fans can learn something about that and learn what it looks like to be a true fan and invest. And UCF, having not even been in the Big 12, brings that energy in. And so I've been encouraging Arizona State fans to take a look at what's going on over there and to emulate it. And, of course, when I talk to people, there are people who listen to a niche podcast. I'm preaching to the choir. But I would say that's the tone I'm trying to set. But on the real, I'm not 100% sure that Arizona State fans have any idea what to think. I think is going to be interesting first impression in Tempe and the trip back out.
Perhaps you should start beating the drum for a rivalry with Houston. Nah, we just can agree, both fan bases, that we just need to make fun of Houston.
Yeah. I mean, they got. I don't think that'd be hard for ASU fans, because they have the same. Oh no, we have the same hand signal as Houston, right? We can fight over that. I think they have the little shocker thing that we do. It's a pitchfork for us. I don't know what it is for them.
So what kind of atmosphere are you expecting Saturday night for this one? Is it an announced sellout, or you don't think it'll hit that?
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a great environment, and a big part of that is you have an athletic director who has. We've gotten away from kind of tailgating, got a little corporate with things, and so he extended the hours that were allowed for tailgating. The previous athletic director got rid of a sign in the stadium that said, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." And people have been calling for that to come back for years. They just got that put back up in the stadium as kind of a point of excitement. You reached a bowl for the first time in a while, and so there's going to be that level of excitement there as well. Almost wish that they hadn't alluded to Cam Scatterbu possibly not playing, because I think that it would just be that much more exciting. But I am expecting a sellout. It's not the easiest place to play. And I'm sure you guys are used to this, home and away splits for everybody. We've all got a little University of Washington in us, where we're perfect at home and the opposite of perfect on the road. But it's still pretty warm out there. It's a natural playing surface. It's up against a butte. It can get pretty loud. And then there's just kind of a newfound excitement around the program with them winning. So I would think that this would be one of the better environments for Arizona State football since going back to maybe 2019, which is going to be very exciting.
Tell us real quickly about the Forecast, part of the 10-12 network, just like Sons of UCF.
Yeah. So Philip invited me to join the podcast network, and I'd run a solo show just talking to myself from like 2015 until 2021. But it really stopped being fun talking about Arizona State when you found out that, Antonio Pierce Grandpa was asleep at the wheel, and Antonio Pierce took hold of that wheel and drove us into a ditch. And so there's a lot of responsibility to go around, but it was because the program was reported from within. The civil war that kicked off from all that made it really not fun to cover Arizona State. So I hosted a community spaces every single Wednesday night on Twitter, did that for years. But when things were looking up and Kenny Dillingham came in and Philip was like, hey, if you're interested in doing this, bring it back. And so I have, and it's been a few weeks, got maybe 10 or 12 episodes out there. It's a solo show, so it's a little bit different. It's a little bit stream of consciousness. But every single week we have a little bit of fun and suggest some signs to maybe make fun of the competition a little bit to bring into the stadium. And there's a lot of excitement over ASU basketball, also a lot of anger. And Bobby Hurley always brings a lot of attention to that program. So we talk a little bit of hoops, talk a little bit of football, and just have fun. And when I say we, I mean me, the royal me. So
Okay.
it's a little bit different, but 40-minute show once a week, and it's been fun so far.
Well, Ralph, we appreciate you spending some time with us on Sons of UCF Live. Welcome to the 1012 Network family of shows, and we hope to talk with you again.
Thanks, guys. Good luck Saturday.
All right. Thank you much. 40 minutes of talking to yourself. You've done some solo shows with Pegasus, haven't you?
I have. Occasionally Bailey abandons me and I have to go stream of consciousness. And let me tell you, I'm a talker and I enjoy talking. It gets difficult because at some point it stops being a show and starts actually just being me, like listing things off, like the groceries, what I have to do. It's tough. It's difficult.
I find there to be similarities between these two schools. You remember UCF sent teams out there to study the downtown Arizona State campus, which was a model for the downtown UCF campus. So young fan base, and I think they're going to have a good time on Saturday night in Tempe. I saw the comment from my friend Todd. Yes, we were out there. Knights led 13-10 in that one, as we talked about on Around the Kingdom, lost 46-13. They had 2 first downs, 5 yards in the second half. So things did not go well for the Knights. All right. You join us for an hour, you get 1 minute. What are the Knights wearing?
Man, let me tell you, you think this is 1 minute. This is the rest of the show, Trace. We're canceling the rest of the lineup. We're just talking about this. With the UCF is going gold helmets, white jerseys, white pants for this game. I have a question for you, Trace. UCF has worn this combo, gold, white, white, 2 other times before this one. Can you tell me the games?
No, I never know these things. No, I don't know.
Really? The first would be the Peach Bowl, the biggest game in UCF history. And UCF
Okay.
won that one. And then it would be Boise State last year. I believe UCF also won that one. So this is an undefeated combo all time. It's a great look. I mean, it's honestly like probably my favorite road look that UCF has. The gold helmets just look so great, especially these new ones. And I think it's exciting that UCF fans had a little bit of a riot over UCF not using enough gold, and now they've gone gold helmets for Iowa State, gold helmets for BYU, break for the space game, gold helmets for Arizona State. I think they're making a statement here about giving the fans what they want with the gold, and just keep rolling with it. Can't beat these gold helmets.
Big game gold. Are we allowed to say that?
No. We're not. We're done with the big game gold.
All right, looking sharp. Get the win Saturday in Tempe. All right. Time to look around at what else is going on in UCF sports.
Addison Williams, let's go around the kingdom.
That's real quick. That's 2 seconds. 2 seconds. 2-second clip. Women's basketball going on right now. They're 1-0. They defeated Iona in their opener the other day. They are ahead of Marquette after 3 quarters. Knights looking to go 2-0. Men's soccer, they get the 2-1 win at Coastal Carolina to close out the regular season. Luca Dorado with a goal. He, by the way, the Sunbelt Offensive Player of the Week. He had the hat trick in Friday's win. And Jonas Fritchie. We'll try that. Fritchie, Sunbelt Defensive Player of the Week. The Sunbelt Championship begins this weekend on Sunday and in Huntington, West Virginia. The Knights will face 6th-seeded James Madison. They're kind of on the bubble there to get into the NCAA tournament. Definitely have to get a win against James Madison. And then, see where they go from there. Maybe 2 wins, maybe even making it to the Sun Belt Championship. Volleyball, 8-11 overall, 1-9 in the Big 12. 7 straight losses. They are at top 20 ranked TCU. And hey, we got a guy out in Texas that is part of the Sons of UCF family. He is Robert Aronoff, 2 letters, 2 words. He joins us now live from Fort Worth. Robert, what's going on at volleyball?
Hey guys, well, UCF they're in the middle of the third set. The first one, they dropped by 5 points. Second one, they dropped but went to extra points, 24-26. And UCF's locked up with them in the third. Right now it's 13-13. You can really feel the loss of, Emily in the power game, and not having her in the rotation makes a difference. And I tell you what, this TCU squad looks every bit as good as top 20.
All right. Good deal. We got a guy on the scene at volleyball at TCU. He is Robert. Robert, safe travels to Phoenix. See you tomorrow.
See you in about 10 hours.
Yeah, that's true too. All right. See you, Robert. All right. Pegasus Podcast is now part of the Sons of UCF family. You can find episodes, their post-game show and their weekly show now on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel, where you will also find Eric Lopez and I talking about the issues of the day on Around the Kingdom. And here's a clip from this week's show.
Based on that one precinct, I would vote him in my ballot right now to be my quarterback for 2025. That number 10, it's worked out before with the quarterback. Has it not, Trace? Something about him scrambling around, making throws. Look, we're going to learn more about it against Arizona State. It's one game against Arizona. But let's be honest, Trace. When we've seen Dylan Risk in the Arizona game and the couple of drives in the BYU game, he's been the best quarterback on UCF this year. He's looked the best, especially passing the football, hasn't he?
What do you think, Christian? Best looking quarterback on the field this year for the Knights?
Is there a better ad for the Pegasus Podcast and those who don't listen to start listening than for me to tell you that a week ago I referred to Dylan Risk as an FCS quarterback who will find a nice home once he's no longer on UCF's roster?
Viewership dropping as we speak right now. People tuning out.
That is, I'm watching the number go.
Are you not sold? You're not sold. You're not sold.
I said that before he played. I feel like that's a very important note to make, but I liked him a lot. I thought he had a great game. I want to see him play against a team that has tape on him. I think that I would be feeling better if we didn't just do the Swift Shakuri Brown 3 weeks ago, where we had a good game from him and the fan base went, think we might have found our guy here. And what Dylan Risk did was a lot more impressive and frankly, a lot more sustainable. And I expect that he's going to continue to show that he probably is the best guy on this roster right now in the quarterback room. But as far as he is the new Mackenzie Milton because he wears number 10 and he is the savior, I'm not there yet. I need to see more than one great performance in a game where you had a team, A, a bad team, and B, a team totally caught off guard for me to really be completely in on the Risk hype train. I want to be there. I want to get on it. I'm just not quite on it yet.
He might have a, come down moment here at Arizona State. That doesn't mean they can't get out of there with a win, but it's hard to ask a guy 20-25, 294, 3 touchdowns, as strong a performance as he had. It's hard to duplicate that, but maybe he won't have to. I mean, Arizona State's got a good defense. And UCF is going to try and run the ball, but he does give you something, and he certainly displayed some leadership. So fingers crossed on Saturday in Tempe. All right, it is that time again.
So it's a mailbag. So what?
So what? Do you know whose mailbag that is?
It's that time again. Time to open the Brian W. Peterson Sons of UCF mailbag.
Is there any show on this network that guy doesn't appear on every week?
Can I just say that it's that time again echoes through my dreams at night? Just his voice saying that. I just hearing it on a loop.
You call it dreams. Some people call it nightmares. At Tiger Picks _ Texas A&M win for men's basketball. Top 5 win in program history, Christian. Yes? No?
I don't know. I mean, it potential maybe, but we're one game out. I got to see what Texas A&M actually becomes here. I don't expect this, but this could be a situation where we get midseason. It turns out A&M was not that impressive of a win as we thought. Potential. We're on top 5 win watch, but I'm not ready to call that right now.
Too soon. At Golden Knight _2, always consistent week in and week out delivering mailbag questions. Are you happy we won the game and broke the streak again, or still mad at Gus's mismanagement of the season, where it took 9 games to figure out who the quarterback is?
Can it not be both?
Two things can't be true at the same time. At the JC Morning, how many people should be eating crow after discounting Dylan Risk? Which I replied online. I typically don't use this show to respond, and I go, 1 game. one game. Let's just, it was an enjoyable game. We had fun, right? Space game and all that, but one game. Capped Veg 1. Is there anyone who can honestly say that they had Dylan Risk as a viable option for quarterback before BYU? Is it possible some players just shine in the moment? I believe in that, definitely. He rose to the moment. Was it 2 seasons ago that the UCF football slogan preseason was "Seize the Moment" or something like that? He definitely did.
Yeah, he did big time. I mean, I do think that I don't know of anyone who imagined a reality where Dylan Risk was ever going to start a game at UCF. I think that this was definitely kind of came out of left field, but you talk about seizing the moment. He did it literally better than anyone else in that quarterback room did this season, and boy, did they give a lot of different guys from that room the chance to do so. So.
Yeah, Riley's going, what I got to do? Everybody else has gotten in. Can I have gone in on that one play with EJ Colson at Iowa State? At Lonely B, UCF Mario. If Dylan starts all season, does UCF send 1 or 2 players to New York? Okay.
Wow.
All right, let's not get carried away. At Riley Carey 16, do you think Gus should elevate Sean Beckton to wide receiver coach so Tim Harris can work with all of the offensive players and coaches?
That one's interesting because I don't think Tim Harris had a ton of wide receiver coach experience, period, when UCF hired him for that role. That felt more like they were just trying to get him on the staff to be the OC, and they had to find a positions group for him to coach. So I don't know. It's not unusual for coordinators to coach position groups. Ted Roof just did it. Maybe not the best example, but I don't know. It's food for thought.
At UCF Knights win, of these 3 notoriously broken things, which one most likely to work the next time you encounter it? McDonald's milkshake machine, Wawa's free air machine, or the UCF punt kickoff return team? There's death, there's taxes, and there's the Trent Whittemore fair catch when he's not let it sail over his head.
I was going to say, I think fair catch Trent Whittemore is working perfectly. I think that's exactly what they're looking for. Them to catch the ball and do nothing.
There's no other option.
No.
Nobody. I'm just saying. That's all. What's the answer, though? What do you think?
I hate to break the question, but it is definitely the McDonald's. It is definitely the McDonald's machine. If we're being entirely honest,
it never works. At Z Dadaush, what do you think Gus means when he says we couldn't get him on the field when referring to the recent success of Jacoby Jones over the last 2 games?
I assume it was injury related or conditioning related, but I like to think of the idea that they actually just couldn't find Jacoby Jones on the sidelines during games, and we're like, we wanted to put him in, we just weren't sure where he went. But I'm hoping that means there was some sort of injury issue keeping him out there, and not they just actually buried their second best wide receiver for the first half of the season.
Yeah. As we go through the questions, by the way, drop yours in the comments. Christian is monitoring that, and we'll slide in questions. Let me know if there is some. I don't always read the comments on screen. At L025, how much of a factor do you expect the vengeful spirit of Pat Tillman to be in the ASU salute to service game this week? Vengeful seems tough, but I thought you said something to me pre-show. How many people know about Pat Tillman in the fan base?
Yeah, I'd be curious about that. That was so long ago at this point. I'd be curious about their team and everything, what that's like. But it's interesting. I mean, I kind of talked about depending on how seriously their team takes something like that, and they're owed to that and everything. I mean, we talked about the space game having meaning for UCF when it doesn't for opponents, and the spark that gives. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. Robert, the aforementioned Robert, at 2 letters, 2 words. Coaches often say the biggest improvement a team makes is between first and second game. Can UCF expect the same from Dylan Risk between his first and second game? Interesting question from Robert, because it was not asked of Gus Malzahn on Monday.
The answer is no. I don't believe
that. A cliche thing. That's just a cliche.
I don't. It's one of Gus's favorite things since he's been here. I don't think it's true. I don't think a switch flips. I mean, I think it's. I don't know. And he definitely has not said it in seasons like this where the team actually works through the course of the season. So I don't buy in on that one personally.
At @blackgold_Ed also consistent in sending in questions. Thank you. Why was Dylan buried on the bench? Is Gus and staff putting NIL players ahead of other players, irrespective of talent? This feels like a lot of in hindsight, right? I mean, who said that the KJ Jefferson acquisition was not a good idea? And I know we heard some things coming out of spring camp and preseason camp. You can't deny, though, that you've got to respect the investment in acquiring players. And when would you have benched him? I mean, now we've got hindsight, right? We saw what he did. It was a little shaky against New Hampshire, but he led the comeback against TCU, and it was a 3-0 team. I mean, Eric Lopez thought and said on Around the Kingdom that he thought they pulled him too soon, that with KJ Jefferson, maybe they beat Cincinnati. I know it's a lot of conjecture here on our part, but when would it have been a better time? And do we know that Dylan Risk could have stepped in and won any of those games?
I object less to benching KJ when they did than to what they did after benching him. When they benched him clearly without knowing who he was going to be benched for. You have this game against Cincinnati where Cincinnati's out here trying to win the football game and UCF's out here just kind of throwing quarterbacks at the wall, seeing if anything sticks, trying it out. It was a strange decision to do that and just not really know where they were going to go from there. We'll try some EJ, we'll try some Jacurri. And honestly, from what we saw from Jacurri in particular, I mean, we understand why he wasn't starting over KJ in the first place. Obviously struggles a lot throwing the ball. And I don't know, you make the decision to bench him, that's fine. But doing it without any kind of clear plan of why you're doing it, as if you're just doing it to make a statement and then sending the fan base on this seesaw of different quarterbacks every week for games after, that was the part that I have a hard time getting past.
So you refer to that playground equipment as a seesaw. Yeah. Do you ever refer to it as a teeter-totter? Have you heard that one?
I have never in my life heard of a teeter-totter.
No,
do you
that's
mean tater-tot, like the thing you eat?
No, teeter-totter. Look that up.
Okay, I'm learning so much.
There's a slight age difference between the two of us. When I looked at you in the press box and I said, Gus seems to think EJ Colson is Doogie Howser, you just looked at me like, who's Doogie Howser?
I did understand carton of milk, though, and a face being on a carton of milk, so I did have that going for me.
Yeah, Andrew Cherico did not get that reference. At Team Az and my buddy Todd, what does UC have to do to prevent Dylan Risk from entering the transfer portal? Boy, that's interesting, right? You wonder, you saw this now with the Gators announcing Billy Napier would be back, right? How much will these teams be willing to pony up to get rid of coaches when they also have to have dollars from donors to pay for NIL acquisitions?
Yeah, I mean, how do you keep Dylan Risk its money? I think that's clear, especially if he has anything like the performance he just had against Arizona continuously. But yeah, that's a particularly interesting one for UCF, since a lot of the fan base wants Gus gone. Is okay, you fire Gus, you spend all that money. How are you funding when you're probably going to have to be paying players directly from the school next year, which is the way it should work. I think we're all ready to move past, administrators asking fans, well, the team's bad because of you. Why aren't you giving us more money? But it's interesting. It's going to be interesting how UCF handles that. I don't think UCF is going to have the NIL dollars to play with or the in-house dollars to play with as a lot of the other Power 4 programs. So I'm curious how they balance all that.
Well, in this fan base and the amount of dollars it has, is it the best investment to spend $12 million to say goodbye to Gus when maybe if you put $12 million into the player acquisition part of it, right? If you pay off Gus and staff, plus you got to hire, it's all a mess. It's all a mess.
Do you trust Gus Malzahn to find the right players with that $12 million, though?
We've got an entire offseason of talking about that. At UCFXOS, Andy, if you were naming your son Dylan, D-Y-L-A-N, or Dylan, D-I-L-L-O-N, which spelling would you go with? Are there any other ways to spell that? Or are those the two?
I think that's it, unless I'm missing an obvious one. I'm personally going with the spelling that has the Y. It doesn't necessarily grammatically make sense, but it just looks better in writing. So I'm going with that one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with D-Y-L-A-N. All right, it's Scott 88513. Is UCF making a bowl game?
No.
What do you think? Got to win 2 out of 3, which means you got to split the road games, Arizona State, West Virginia, and then you got to beat Utah. Cam Rising is questionable for that game, according to Kyle Whittingham. No, just kidding.
My take is it's decided this weekend. I think if they beat Arizona State, they're going to a bowl. I think if they lose this game, they're not.
I know you don't want to root against UCF. Is it good if they go to a bowl game?
I could never bring myself to not root for them in a game, but I do see the writing on the wall of them scraping to a bowl and Gus convincing himself that he made the right changes and now he knows how to fix this team. And then they go out next year and go 6-6 again, and they're just trapped in this reality. I don't know. It's a weird spot to be in.
Yeah, but imagine they are 6-6 or 7-5, and you've had back-to-back years in the Big 12 in bowl games, and no one else would be able to say that of the newcomers.
I think you'd have a hard time finding a UCF fan who finds that comforting or
You've been asking this question in some form or fashion on Around the Kingdom. Is there anything Gus can do to win back the fan base this year? What if they go 7-5 and win the bowl game?
I think that wins back the fan base. I actually do think that wins back the fan base. If you win out,
thing that you can build on, if you can rally around Dylan Risk, and maybe you don't have some quarterback confusion and controversy in 2025 season, then maybe that is something you rally the base back. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for your questions. It is that time every week when I ask Adam what's in the box, but Adam is otherwise occupied right now, but he did leave us this.
Hey guys, hope you're having a great show tonight. Christian, I apologize. I'm sure Trace is cranky because he has to hit the button, so hopefully he's been nice to you. But hey, I think the show has been fantastic. I haven't seen any of it, by the way, yet, but I'm sure it's great. But here is your What's in the Box question, brought to you by our good friends at Charlie Hustle. Promo code TEN1215 to get 15% off your first order. Gentlemen, the question is as follows. When is an appropriate time to send a text message to a friend? How early should you send a text message? How late can you send a text message? Assume it's a non-emergency situation. What's the time frame where text messages to be sent are appropriate? Go Knights. Charge on.
Thank you, Adam. I think it depends on the relationship you have with the person. I have friends across all time zones, and I'm a late night person, so it would not surprise them to receive some message from me. So I think it depends on the relationship you have with that person. I mean, I have friends I know they have early morning work shifts and things, so I wouldn't hit them late. You and I tend to exchange messages well into the night. So I think it depends. What Matt Dolan said, 9 to 9. But there was a time when I worked in telemarketing and you didn't call people before 9 a.m. and you didn't call them after 9 p.m. So I respect that as well. But I think it depends on who in the relationship.
Maybe this is me learning I'm a bad person because I've never given 1 second of thought to when I'm texting someone. I'll just text people whenever I feel like it. I think if they're a true friend, you can just text them any time of day or night and it's okay. Or maybe I've
Do
just
you silence your phone at night?
I do the opposite. I put my phone on ringer when I go to sleep in case someone really needs me. So I'll hear the alert go off.
Yeah, that's interesting. But so you hear every beep and every
we don't
alert?
need to get too into the weeds, but you can change in settings. Like everyone in my phone has their own ringtone and every app has its own ringtone. So I know by the noise if it's someone I'm interested in hearing from or not.
Well, you're very well suited to play what's in the box. So that's good. All right, so we survived the hour. We talked through the different mechanics of the show. How'd we do?
I think this was excellent. I think that all the buttons were pressed even without Adam, and I think that's great. I think we got some great comments. We got some great commentary.
Tell us a little bit more about Pegasus Podcast. You guys have been on for quite a while, and we're glad to have you to be a part of the Sons of UCF family with your shows now residing on Sons of UCF's YouTube channel.
Yeah, definitely. We started the Pegasus Podcast in January of 2021. We started the podcast because Bailey Adams, my co-host, said we should have a podcast. You were the first person we told outside of our immediate family that we were doing a podcast, to which you replied to me, really filling a niche there for UCF community. And it's been a fun ride since. In the first 2 weeks, our first 2 episodes ended up being Danny White leaving and then Josh Heupel leaving because we timed it very well. And
that's
just tremendous from there. And yeah.
Tremendous. Content-wise, that is the dream right there.
It was a heck of a way to start. And yeah, we've got our post-game shows that we've loved. We got our weekly shows. We're going strong. It's a ton of fun, and we appreciate everyone listening, and we're excited for our little partnership with the Suns here.
All right. Women's basketball gets its second win of the season, a victory over Marquette, and volleyball has been swept at TCU. So the Knights have lost another one. So tough road for volleyball this season. I want to thank Ralph from the Forkcast. I find that difficult to say, to be quite candid, and I have got to say it slowly. I want to thank Ben Hazel. Good to have Ben back. I'm looking forward to Bowtie Ben during Big 12 play. Contributions from Jeff Allen and Andrew Cherico as well, Andy, and all that great talk about uniforms. Christian, it has been fun. Look forward to working with you on future shows. For Christian Simmons, I'm Trey Strelko. Thanks so much for watching this week's Sons of UCF Live.
It's Randy Pittman. Play tight end here at UCF, number 5. Thank you for watching the Suns at UCF.
All right, this is the part where Adam lets it bleed on a little bit and catches us maybe saying something, and I just have to make sure that I hit end stream, which I'm going to do right now. Maybe. No, it's a different button. See, this is what threw me off the top. There's 2 buttons to start the